We are living in times where there is an assault on sanity. Political correctness has run amok and logic has been left by the wayside. Do you constantly ask yourself, WTF is going on in this nation? Do you sometimes feel like a stranger in your own country? Well, fear not. You are not alone. This is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Show, coming to you from deep inside flyover country with your hosts, VEE Right and Jose Estevez.
Welcome, everybody. It's WTF, and I am VEE Right.
And I am Jose Estevez. Welcome to the show, folks, where 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday, we come to you live, unrehearsed, unscripted, unfiltered, and PG-13, but never PC. This is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot radio show. I might also add that Monday through Thursday, we're live from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
That's
right. Take it away,
Yeah. Also want to let you guys know that our phone lines are open the moment we hit live air until we shut it down. Please call in if you've got a topic or question or comment. Come on, give us a call, 313-462-0068. The only request we make is turn down your volume. Otherwise, it feeds back through our system, and we may be forced to disconnect the call. So, you guys call in. Also, if you would like to share our information with others in your social network or in your real-life environment, you can send them to our website, thewtfradioshow.com, where they can find links of all the networks that host us, in addition to ways to contact us, which would be, Patriot Network News, PNNTalkRadio.com, PatriotsRide.org, TuneIn.com, Spreaker.com, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, the contact information is always the same. Hit us up on Facebook at WTF, the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Show, on Twitter at the WTF Radio, or just shoot us an email. Contact us at thewtfradioshow.com. I also want to take an opportunity to remind you guys, following our show tonight will be the Ruthie Report. You guys want to tune in to Patriot Network News for the Ruthie Report with Ruthie Hendricks. Senor.
Yeah, Ruthie's great, folks. Give her a shot. Give her a chance. You'll like it. You'll start listening to her as well, immediately following us on Thursdays. Definitely. Hey, guess who's back in the news?
Oh, let's see. I can think of two people. You choose one. I got a 50 shot.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just figuring it's either a Gitmo Detainee or Bo Bergdahl.
Yeah, ding, 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 ding. Both. Let's go with Bo Bergdahl first. I mean, this guy, I don't know if he's playing that he's a total moron, that he might be mentally retarded. I'm not sure if he's doing that on purpose to try to avoid some jail time or some prison time. Maybe I don't think he's going to get the rope anyway. He should. But he says he likened himself to Jason Bourne before his capture. Now listen to this. After slipping away alone from his tiny base in Afghanistan under cover of darkness in 2009, he had a sinking thought. His plan to draw attention to himself by spawning a massive manhunt was going to lead to a, quote, hurricane of wrath from his commanders. He then decided to deviate from his plan to head straight from his platoon's base, Observation Post MEST, MEST, to the larger headquarters 20 miles away, forward operating base Sharana, he said on an episode of a podcast that he's just done. So he's comparing himself to a fictional action hero. He said he was going to collect intelligence and look for the Taliban before turning himself in as a way of limiting the amount of trouble he faced. I don't know what to believe with this guy anymore. Like I said, I don't know if this is just cover so that he doesn't get the maximum penalty imposed. He did say he was walking away from his base intentionally to draw attention to the fact that there was poor leadership and they were being put in harm's way and danger. Now, remember, wasn't he in the Coast Guard, or he tried to get in the Coast Guard and they didn't let him, or they kicked him out shortly after? So somewhere along the line, somebody should have never let him in the military to begin with. But the fact remains, he was allowed in. He did what he did. 5 top Taliban were released, including a lot of money. And I think he had to go to prison for the rest of his life.
Well, wait a minute.
You
know, he's doing double speak, because he also said that he deserted his unit to save them.
Right. Well, and that's what he's saying. He's trying to say that he was doing this to save his guys' lives because then it would draw attention, his leaving or some. I don't know what his mind was thinking and how it was acting, but yeah, it all kind of.
Well, typical
sense in
style
his mind.
lie. I mean, like the lie out of a typical 5-year-old. It just is not holding water.
Right. So there's Bo Bergdahl. He's popped back up again on our radar, and we're going to keep tracks of the scumbag. That's for sure.
Well,
and then he's talking about how he was tortured, and of course, making it sound like, pity me. That's too bad. You left your base in Afghanistan, and you got caught by the enemy. He
didn't look like he was being tortured playing volleyball.
Right.
He didn't look like he was being tortured playing basketball. He didn't look like he was being tortured sitting around a campfire eating dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll just never forget one thing that is singed into my memory is the picture of his dad with that full-on Taliban-looking red beard, and his mom, and then walking literally arm in arm with. How do you say it? How do you say that?
Imam Hussein.
Resident? Yeah, Imam Hussein.
Resident. Imam Hussein. Resident.
I'll never forget that. In the Rose Garden, folks. Oh, a hero is back. Our hero. Right. Well, luckily, the people of America are much smarter than that for the most part. And, kind of made sure people understood exactly what was happening. And don't forget, folks, they made all of the members of his unit and many others sign non-disclosure paperwork and had attorneys involved and stuff like that. So they're covering something up, and he is absolutely a scumbag. So we'll keep following this and see where it goes.
Well, on top of that, one of the 5 that were traded for him just showed up. It showed up today in an Al Qaeda promotional video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And then Josh Ernst gets up there and says, well, 90% of them that we've released have not gone back into the battlefield. Number one, we know that's a lie. Mm-hmm. We know that those of us who are in the know that to be a lie, because the Pentagon and the Department of Defense have already come out and stated that that's not the case.
Right.
So we know Josh Ernst, the liar in chief, the residential mouthpiece, is just out and out lying. But even if you considered that only 10% were going back to fight against us, those aren't very damn good odds.
Right.
Not when you're talking about people who want to annihilate the entire population of your country.
Right. I agree.
I mean, these aren't people who stole a freaking car at 16.
Right. Good point.
These aren't people that freaking shoplifted from your local grocery store.
Yeah, that's that. Mm-hmm.
They're the people who were out there killing our guys. That's how they got detained. That's how they were prisoners of war, in essence. So dangerous. And let us look at it like this. That war's not ended. It has never ended. Why were they released?
Right. No, they never should have been. Ever. But he's bound and determined. He's going to empty that place out. I notice I don't say shut it down. He's going to empty it out. And he's doing it. And, of course, what are they doing? They haven't changed. They haven't seen the error of their ways, and they haven't changed. They didn't do rehabilitation with them in there. My goodness, they had a judge. Allowing them to get their demands that they don't have female military people transporting them back and forth to hearings and different things like that, and having direct contact with them. A United States military judge allowed that. So it's all a bunch of bull, Obama. It really is. It so much is. And he gets to do whatever he wants. Congress says you're not going to shut it down. Well, if it's empty, then I guess it's a moot point, right? And my understanding is they're well under 100 now, correct?
They've got 110 in there as of today.
110, all right.
But, I mean, letting go 4 at a time, that's right. 26 days, 27 days. That's how long it would take him over the next year. 27 days, 2 times a month to release 4 at a time.
Yeah.
And don't think for a minute that he won't take that opportunity, because for all of you guys out there that think, your gun rights are safe and everything else, trust this. He is expanding background checks on gun buyers through executive action. He has had a team of White House lawyers looking at the possibility of setting an arbitrary limit of allowable gun sales so that private sellers who surpass that limit would be required to run sales background checks. He hasn't been indicating which avenue he's going to be taking, whether or not it's going to be towards the retail side of it or sales in general, or both. That's what I expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I expect
but
you're probably right.
he is most definitely going to push for some arbitrary, and it would not surprise me at all to see that come up, and it'd be a 30-day wait.
Oh, yeah. It gets disheartening sometimes to see what's happening, and that there's absolutely nobody doing anything. And I shouldn't say that people aren't saying things against it. Certainly there are people out there saying things about that, making, strongly worded statements, but nobody is doing absolutely anything
is doing
worthwhile to stop him. Nothing whatsoever.
You notice, what do you hear from Paul Ryan? I'm listening.
Well, I think they're still trying to work on the budget, aren't
they? Wait a minute, Jose. Hold on for a minute. I think I hear something. No, that was silence.
Yeah.
That was silence.
That's what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and we were talking about how everything is the vote. Oh, we can't, we can do Obamacare if you guys give us the majority, the majority. So we give them the majority of the House. Oh, right. We could do we could repeal Obamacare, but, we're just one department. If you'll give us Congress, we can do something about Obamacare. So we give them we give them Congress. And now what is it? Oh, well, we can't do anything. If you'll give us the White House. In the meantime, they're giving us away left and right. I mean, that new omnibus spending, you notice you guys have not heard a word from either party speaking about what all is being funded. The only person that may have said something, and I say may because I think he was discussing it, but he hasn't come out and said anything solidly, is Jeff Sessions. But you haven't heard anything from them about the omnibus that will be signed and voted on by tomorrow evening. And I bring that up because we won't be here.
Of course, Friday evening. And it'll happen after business hours. It's going to happen. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 11, 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning. And don't tell me they haven't done it before in the last several months. They have done exactly that.
Well, I mean, typically they do it, but they do it at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's getting home for the weekend. They're wanting to enjoy their time. They're not really watching the news, and that's what they're counting on. People aren't really paying attention to the news from about 3 o'clock Friday evening till Monday morning.
Yeah, it's just, they're all despicable.
Now, I want to remind you guys what's going to be in that omnibus. Funding for Planned Parenthood is going to be in that. And funding for up to 200,000 jihadi refugees. 88,000 of those we've already been told by ISIS headquarters they're going to plan on bringing them in the next 6 months.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's talking about, we got some, this location got Syrian refugees, today, and that location got it. What they're not understanding is you've been getting them for 2 months. You've been getting them for 2 months. There's been over 10,000 of them. There will have been over 10,000 of them by January 1st.
Wow.
It is absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Then you really want to hear the kick because of the Donald Trump statement of halting or pausing Islamics into this nation. Of course, he got his big gotcha moment with mainstream media, and honestly, all of the candidates themselves, because all of them, with the exception of Ted Cruz, attacked him, saying, "Oh, we can't do that." Even Paul Ryan stood up and said, "That's not who we are." Who the hell says that? Who says that? Well, that's not who we are. I can't think of but one other person in this country that says that's not who we are. Bitch, you don't know who I am.
No, there's many more people than that.
No, there is only one other person. There is only one other person that has
Hitler.
No, there is only one other person that has stood up there in speech after speech and said, "We can't do that because that's not who we are. We're Americans. That's not who we are." Right. And now all of a sudden, here's Paul Onion Ryan freaking, "Oh, well, we can't do that because that's not who we are." Well, you know what? Well, that is exactly what we can do because the law says so.
It does. We read it last night. And Jimmy Carter did it. Carter did it during the Iran crisis. Jimmy Carter himself. Democrat, of course. Everybody knows that. Worst president. No longer worst president. He's been dethroned by Hussein Obama. But yeah, Jimmy Carter himself did it, of all people.
Well, I'm going to tell you. The Senate Judiciary Committee did what they could to help Imam Hussein today. Jeff Sessions fought hard against an amendment passed by the Senate Judiciary Committee by a vote of 16-4. It's known as a sense of the Senate resolution. There were the four dissenters were Jeff Sessions, Ted Cruz, David Vitter, and Tom Tillis, all Republicans. Those opposed, those pro, or that supported it, were Chuck Grassley, Orrin Hatch, Republican, Lindsey Graham, Republican, John Cornyn, Republican, Jeff Flake, Republican, David Perdue, Republican, Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Christopher Coons, Democrat, Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, Al Franken, Democrat, Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat, Dick Durbin, Democrat, Chuck Schumer, Democrat, Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, Pat Leahy, Democrat, and Mike Lee, Republican. Y'all want to know what that was? The Senate Judiciary passed this sense of the Senate. What it allows is that no one can stop a refugee based on their religion from coming to the United States. They have attached it to the United States Civil Rights Code. Do you guys know what that means? That basically means they have extended civil rights around the globe.
Based on religion.
Based on religion. You doggone right.
Word.
You doggone right. It hasn't. It only passed the Senate Judiciary Committee right now. However, it's going to pass because what did they do? They tucked it inside the Nuclear Terrorism Convention's Implementation and Safety of Maritime Navigation Act of 2015. That's where they tucked it in.
See, these bills have got to be stand alone. One page, maybe one paragraph. Until these things change, folks, I don't care who's in. I don't care who's in Trump. I don't care who's in.
The problem is if once this passes, if you think for one moment the Black Lives Matter crowd is the worst it gets, wait till you get every little low-rent third world nation's countrymen demanding their civil rights of the United States.
Yeah. Well, they do it already. You make it across the border, folks. I mean, you have.
But you won't have to make it across the border. That's the thing.
But what I'm saying is, it's already been established. You can, if you can get into this country by hook or by crook, you're golden.
This is totally different. This is totally different. At least then you had to put your feet on American soil. Yeah. With this, you won't ever have to come here and demand your civil rights.
Wow. Yeah, it's.
It's basically a move toward the ratification of the idea that global migration is a human and civil right, and that the so-called immigrants' rights must be supreme to the rights of the sovereign nations to determine who can and cannot enter the borders. Mm-hmm. Their rights will supersede your nation's sovereignty.
Oh, we got troubles. We got troubles coming. May not be in the next 6 months, folks. May not be in the next year, but we got troubles coming. And to kind of go along with this, there's another story. Now, interestingly enough, out of California, a Democrat out of California, a congresswoman at that, and a Hispanic representative, Loretta Sanchez, said Muslims seeking a caliphate are willing to use terrorism and violence to impose their views on the Western world. She said that up to 20% of Muslims want to establish an Islamic caliphate and would use terrorism to achieve that goal. God bless her for saying that. Now, she's running against Democratic State Attorney General Kamala Harris for the California Senate seat being vacated by retiring Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer. Yay, that's about time. But this is amazing for her to come out and say, like I said, not only a Hispanic, a female, a Democrat in California, nailing it, calling the truth for what it is. Good for her. All of this going together, though, does not make me feel like the future is looking very bright at this point.
Well, the only positive, in all honesty, the only positive in all this is that they thought they had nailed Trump to the wall by calling him out and telling him that he was, just so awful for wanting to put this pause until the system works. In all honesty, I think, he was actually right in saying just, put a halt to it, indefinitely, period, right. At all. Mm-hmm. But that they did not anticipate. I really do believe that Trump did know about Carter's actions. I think that he came out and said it knowing that he would get all of this media reaction. And I know that I feel certain that he knew that he was going to slam them by making them eat their own cake when he told them, wait a minute, Carter did it.
Right. 2/3 of Republican potential voters today agreed with him. 2/3. How do you get 2/3 of people to agree on almost anything nowadays? Now, of course, that's all Republicans, but there has been broad support from Democrats, liberals, as well. The polls that they've showed in the last 24 hours or so.
Well, I mean, one of the polls that they did was in South Carolina, which is going to be a big southern location for all the presidential candidates. And prior to him making that statement, he was only polling 30% in South Carolina, and the day after that, he's pulling 38%. As a matter of fact, one of the reporters said that they went around and they couldn't find anybody who wasn't voting for him.
Well, there you go. And now you've got Britain wanting to ban him. I mean, Britain, don't you have enough trouble? Wait a minute. I think I hear the jackboots marching in the distance. Maybe you ought to take care of your own problems, mate.
I wonder if they're going to maintain that ban when and if he becomes president. Now, that would be interesting. Y'all only think getting the Churchill statue was bad.
Would that be something else or not?
What would be hilarious to me is they have this Islamic overrun and issue there is if, in all honesty, I think this would be funny. Donald Trump becomes president, they start getting overrun with Islamics, and we sit back and say, oh, but we're not welcome there.
Yeah, too bad, mates.
Have fun.
Cheers. Cheerio.
Maybe you should call Angela Merkel.
Right. See if the Germans will help you this time.
Yeah.
One of our one of our friends online is saying, now this is going back just a couple minutes when we were talking about the bills, and I said they should do all these bills no more than one page, maybe even a paragraph each. He said, when we were talking about splitting the bills apart, they're actually working on restoring regular order to the budget next year and splitting it into 12 separate spending bills. Now, this is his opinion. We'll see. Not holding my breath. He said this is per Thomas Massey on C-SPAN this morning. So, well, like I said, I don't know what that means. He apparently, I'm not huge into all that sort of thing, but I'll believe it when I see it, I guess. See it
well, 12 or not, when they're going to give them a day to pass it, nobody's talking about it. What's that tell you if it's in it? And when calls were made to these representatives to see what they thought about it, they would either not comment or say that they had not read it yet.
How can you have a job, much less be an elected representative of the people that you allegedly represent? How can you have that job and be so secretive and just not read things? I don't. And people
admittedly
don't pull
not
you out
read
of there
it.
kicking and screaming, and yet you get reelected over and over. I don't get that. It boggles the mind.
Admittedly, I'm going to pass laws that I, for the most part, am immune to.
Mm-hmm.
On you,
and that as well.
And I'm not even going to bother to read them because I have a lunch commitment, a 3-hour lunch commitment, and then I have to go in and read my emails and get my messages that are important, and then I have a fundraising dinner at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And now
That's
and we won't
how
get into
DC works.
And we won't be able to get into it too much tonight, but the Republicans are having preparing for a contested convention. I mean, the Republicans are just appearing in disarray.
And that's ridiculous because they made Donald Trump sign this agreement, and they signed it with them. All of them signed it. So what you're telling me, if Donald Trump gets it, and you're sitting here trying to change the words, is that you have no honor. There is no honor among thieves, guys. And I'm going to tell you something else. If Ted Cruz has any honor at all and they start changing the rules to dump Donald Trump, he should go as independent as well. If he wants to be classified as having any honor and integrity and being a man of honorable reputation, then he should dump the RNC and the Republican Party too. I hate to say that, but if this is the games that they're going to play in order to stay in, it isn't about them. It's not their call. It's the American people's. And I have not decided whether or not Donald Trump would be the one that I would vote for because I still don't like the man. I really do not like him.
Right. No, I agree.
But I can't see a one of them that I do like. Well, excuse me. There is one I like, but he ain't got a shot in hell of making it. And it ain't El Hebe. It ain't. I knew you were going there. It ain't El Hebe.
Yeah.
But they want an establishment person so bad because that guarantees them that things will continue as usual. And I'm going to tell you, it makes me pull towards Donald Trump.
It's almost like they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, but that's what's happening. You know, kind of like Obama.
They're trying so hard to keep things as status quo. And status quo, American people are looking around and saying status quo is what got us into this mess. But they signed an agreement with Donald Trump saying if he would agree not to leave as a third party, that they would play and honor the nominations. Now they're talking about redoing the whole system in order to ensure that he does not get the nomination. That makes them dishonorable people, and people that associate with garbage are garbage. So, Marco Rubio, you want to stay in there, you go right ahead. Ted Cruz, you want to go in, stay in there, you go right ahead. But I'm going to tell you right here on WTF, if that's the games that they pull, then I will slam anybody that stays in the GOP.
Okay, and I don't disagree with that one bit. at this point.
You cannot have honor and integrity and lay down with thieves.
Right. And both parties are equally, like I said,
I don't care about the other party. The other party's not doing that crap.
Yeah.
The other party, the garbage party, the biggest hypocritical, immoral party in the world is not pulling what the conservative party is doing, what the GOP is doing. Those people classified as having morals, character, and integrity. You go ahead. Y'all go ahead and do that. And I'm going to blast you for everything worthless that you are at every time I turn on the radio.
Yeah. Isn't this song? I don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
Even Bernie Sanders is not truly attacking Hillary Clinton.
No, that's true.
And the DNC most definitely is not going after any of the candidates.
Oh, they stick together. Thick as thieves. Mm-hmm.
Well, Senor, you have a guest joining us tonight, and we have had him on our show before. However, we were having issues with the station, and that does happen on live radio from time to time. It's very unfortunate that it did occur, but we were glad to have him back. The Senor did get him back. Since this is the Senor's guest, I'm going to leave him as I introduce Mr. Sandy Berkman. And Senor, take it away.
All right. Yeah, folks, on the line with us tonight for some time, hopefully, will be Mr. Sandy Berkman. He has been on the show before, as V has said. We did have some technical difficulties that night. We wanted to have Sandy back. He was gracious enough to do that. Folks, I'm not going to give you much information on this gentleman, other than his name is Sandy Berkman. He is a United States Marine. Remember, once a Marine, always a Marine. United States Marine Corps. He was on Iwo Jima. And you know what? I'm not going to tell... So World War II veteran, obviously. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it. I'm going to welcome Mr. Berkman, welcome Sandy to the show, and I'm going to let him tell his story in the way that only he can, because guess what, folks? He lived it. Sandy, welcome to the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot radio show.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing well this evening, sir.
It's a pleasure to be back on the show again, and hopefully we can complete the interview this evening.
Yes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sandy Berkman, as Alan told you, and hopefully we'll do this interview. It's mostly an interview on my end, but hopefully Alan will cut in when he wants to, and I'll try to answer any questions that he has to put forward to me. Let me give you a brief autobiography of myself before we get into my military career. My name, as you know, is Sandy Berkman. I'm a retired second lieutenant from the United States Marine Corps. I was born in Cohoes, New York, a small town north of Albany, Albany being the capital. The date was October the 6th, 1920. I just celebrated my 95th birthday last month.
Happy birthday.
And seems like I'm getting up there. Well, we'll see. Anyhow, my dad passed away in 1925, and we moved up to Glens Falls, which is a city about 40 miles north of Albany. Her folks, my mother's folks lived there, and we moved up there after he passed away. I grew up in Glens Falls, went to school there, served as a Boy Scout, did various things in school, which we had a lot of fun. Things that you do when you are growing up. We moved away from the city of Glens Falls in 1934, January. My grandfather died. He was in the retail business. And we relocated in Dover, New Hampshire. I finished high school there. I was 2 years in school up in Dover.
Okay.
It was a great 2 years. I had a lot of fun. After graduating from high school, I moved back to New York State to a place called Mechanicville, which is also a small city north of Albany. That's my father's family. They were also in the retail bookable business. I went to work for them. On December the 7th, 1941, which was a Sunday, as you all know, I was walking down North Main Street, and I saw a bunch of people running around, waving their hands, and it looked like they were under a lot of stress. I stopped one of them, and I asked what happened. Mm-hmm. And they told me that the Japanese attacked us on Pearl Harbor, and President Roosevelt just declared war on the Empire of Japan.
Oh.
Immediately, I knew what I wanted to do. I was 21 years old at that point. I went to Albany, to the Marine Corps recruiting station, and was interviewed by a couple of sergeants there. The interview went very well, and I was accepted. I told them that I needed about 30 days to get myself in order, as I figured I would be gone for some time, and I needed the time to get myself organized before I left. Mm-hmm. They granted me that, and on February the 8th, 1942, I was sworn into the United States Marine Corps as a private. My uncle, who took me down to Albany, brought me to the railroad station, and I had a new top coat on. I said to him, you know, I'm not going to be needing this. I'm going south. Having never been there. It's warm down there. So why don't you take this coat and wear it while I'm gone? And he agreed. At first he was reluctant, but then he said, I'll take it and wear it. I said, good. Well, we got on the train, and the train was mostly recruits from the Marine Corps. We arrived in Paris Island, which was the eastern base for recruitment. I got out of the train, and, you know, it wasn't cool, it was cold. Having no coat, I turned up the collar of my suit and said, well, this is it. I hope that this is not the weather that I expected in South Carolina. But lo and behold, it turned out to be that it was that time of the year. We were loaded on big transport trucks. Being a city boy, I had never been on one of these large trucks like this, let alone see one. And we went to the base in Paris Island. There we were assigned to two-man tents with board sidewalks. That's about all we could expect at that point during the war. These things were thrown together overnight. At the end of the tent row, as we call it, was a single tent where a gunnery sergeant resided. He was our drill instructor, commonly known as a VI. It's amazing that I still remember his name, Franklin Kerber. He was from Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
And he was what we called China Marines. China Marines were fellows that were in the Marine Corps prior to the war. And we tagged the name on them, China Marines.
Okay.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, it makes no difference which, they had different names for us. But that's beside the point.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah.
We got in line at our local and were issued buckets, galvanized buckets. In these buckets were the necessities for getting along, toothpaste, whatever we needed, soap, a towel, and when we emptied out the bucket, we filled them with water. Now, the water was supposed to be used for washing our clothes because we were not allowed out of the area for an accelerated course of 9 weeks.
Okay.
That's how long this was going to last. It was the toughest 9 weeks I had ever spent in my life. But the Marine Corps wants it that way, and they still do it today. They want you to know that they are the boss. The first thing they do is they call you into a barber shop and they cut all your hair off. That's number one. Secondly, he calls everybody together, that is the DI, and he calls us some very unkind names, and we have to stand there and listen because he wants you to know that he is the ultimate boss for the next 9 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got through that. And then we were assigned our further duty. I went north to New River, North Carolina, which is now Camp Lejeune, a major camp in the Marine Corps.
Right.
It was also a tent city thrown together as the war broke out. We assembled there and we formed the 3rd Marine Division. There were only a handful of us, and we were all in headquarters company. I was called into the office the following day and was told that I was going to Quantico, Virginia. That's the show place of the Marine Corps. And most of the schools are up there. And I was going to a high-speed radio operator school. So off I went to Quantico, and I completed this high-speed radio operator school. From there I went back to North Carolina, which by now there were a lot of men there, probably in the thousands, to form the 3rd Marine Division. And I was assigned to that as a PFC. I was promoted. And that was quite a promotion in the Marine Corps, especially as quickly as I made it.
Okay.
We stayed in New River, North Carolina, sometime, trained there, and then we were told we were pulling out for the West Coast. That meant one thing, overseas. We got to the West Coast, and we were stationed in a camp that no longer exists, Camp Elliott, which is outside of San Diego. You know, everything has a story. We were allowed to do some time on our own while we were at Camp Elliott, so I decided to go to a place called La Jolla, which was a part of San Diego.
Right.
I got to the United States Hotel, which was a world-renowned hotel, and I understand it's still in existence. And there was a big park right in front of the hotel, and all these buses pulled up, going in various places. I waited and waited and waited. Finally, a policeman came over, and he says, "Can I help you? You've been here an awful long time." I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for a place called La Jolla, H-O-Y-A. He says, no, and he started laughing. So that's not the way it works around here. He says, La Jolla is spelled Jolla. And that was nothing like I was told. So I found a bus and I went to La Jolla. And from then on, I was well acquainted with the bus system, because if I didn't understand where we were going because of the Spanish-speaking people, he asked. And they told me that people there were more than friendly. They were just wonderful.
Okay.
So we stayed at Camp Elliott for a while, trained again, and we moved up to Camp Pendleton, which is still in existence. That's about, I think, 70 or 80 miles north of San Diego. There we were assigned certain units that we were attached to, and we were told we were getting ready to go overseas, which we did. We went over on a Moore Macmillan transport ship. Believe it or not, this ship was made and owned by the former owner of the New York Yankees, George Steinbrenner.
Okay.
The ship was made in Birmingham, Washington. We boarded the ship, and we said, who's going to escort us across the Pacific? It was 6,900 miles from California to New Zealand, which was our ultimate goal. They said nobody. We said, what?
Yeah.
Japanese out there in submarines. They're gunning for people like us. No, we'll outrun them. We will, okay? Well, apparently we did, because we got to Auckland, New Zealand in good shape. That's the capital of North Island. New Zealand is divided into two parts, North and South Island. Auckland being the capital of the north part of New Zealand, and Christchurch being the capital of the southern part. We were based in a camp about 60 miles north in New Zealand, in a place called Matakana. It was an old New Zealand army camp. It was long, not used because the bulk of the New Zealanders were all in Africa fighting Rommel. All the New Zealand men were gone, or pretty near all of them, all the able men, they were all in the service.
Right.
We stayed there and we trained again. You know, when you're in the Marines, you're in constant training.
Okay.
Which is good, because every day that you are in training, you learn something else. And this something else might save your life at some point. So, no one complained. And we stayed there, and like I say, and trained. And then we were told that we were going north to one of the islands. We went up to Guadalcanal, which was taken by us,
Yes.
back from the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first major breakthrough of World War II. There wasn't much to do there except train again in the jungles and cleaning up and one sort of thing after another. There were a few Japs left, but not many. We trained there for quite a while. One day I got up and I was told that they wanted to see me in G3. That's Division Intelligence.
Okay.
I couldn't imagine what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I went. I met the commanding officer of this unit was Jack Crindler. Well, most of you probably don't know, but Jack Crindler and his brother owned probably one of the world's famous restaurants, the 21 in New York City.
Oh.
And he was the commanding officer in the intelligence corps. There were 8 of us all together that were called in from various units. And he said to us, gentlemen, we have something that we want you to do. This is not a volunteer, nor is it a direct order. We want you to make a decision on your own. We looked at him in disbelief. We couldn't imagine what he wanted.
Right.
Before I tell you what this entails, I must tell you that this is strictly in secret. There's no record of it
Okay.
in your file, and no one in your outfit knows where you are going or when you are coming back.
Oh.
So he says, what is your answer? Well, we immediately said, we'll go. We left Guadalcanal, and we went aboard a submarine called the Squalus. Now, everything has a story. The Squalus was docked at the Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Kittery, Maine Naval Yard. Unfortunately, it sunk. It went to the bottom. They decided to bring it up because it was a good ship.
Okay.
They did it. And that's when it became the Squealess. I do not know what the former name was.
Okay.
I remember that was the name of the sub that sunk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the name of the sub was that we went up. We went to an island called Bougainville. That was our next engagement.
Okay.
The reason we went is we were to meet what they call a coastal watcher. Most of these coastal watchers were from Australia or New Zealand. They lived on an island that was inhabited by Japanese and no one else. And when I say Japanese, I'm talking thousands. And they had been there for a long time. They had a radio station set up, and they were in an area that no one knew about or conceivably could find them. We went up there and we docked at dawn in a rowboat. It was like a movie. And we went ashore, and the captain of the sub told us, be back here in 69 hours. Not 68:45 or 69:10. 69 hours.
Mm-hmm.
This sub will service at that time and be ready to take you aboard. If you're not here, well, we can't help it. So none of us really appreciated that bit of information, but we wanted to sing so. We decided, okay, we'll be ready. We went ashore. We hid the rubber boat in the brush and met the coastal watcher. Unfortunately, I do not remember the man's name, but he was a real nice fellow.
Okay.
And we stayed with him. He had, believe it or not, he had quarters built in the brush where no one knew about it. Mostly the Japs. They never did discover it. And we estimated enemy strength, gun emplacements, and everything that would make it tough for us to land on this island.
Okay.
I, as a radio operator, was there just to communicate in case we needed it, but we didn't. So I did the other work with the 7 other boys. 69 hours later, we were in that rubber raft, and we were met by the sub, and we were taken back to Guadalcanal. About a week after being back at Guadalcanal, everybody wondered where we were, and we couldn't tell them. We just said we had a bit of duty that we had to do on the outside, and we were forbidden to speak about it, and that's as far as the conversation went.
Okay.
We were called into headquarters of our own units. I was the only one from the 3rd Division. And the colonel there told us we were going to be sent to Quantico, Virginia to become second lieutenants. Or we could be commissioned there in the field and stay there. Well, that was an easy decision to make. Naturally, we wanted the 6 months back in the States.
Right.
So we went. The 8 of us were sent back to the States and back to Quantico again, where we were enrolled in Officers Candidate School. Now, everything in the Marine Corps up to that point was done in alphabetical order. If you joined an outfit, you started with A's and it progressed right up the alphabet. My last name started with a B. I was assigned pretty quickly to a bunk.
Mm-hmm.
I had the upper bunk, and a fellow young guy who was part of the V12 program. That was all college graduates, young guys, 21, 22 years old, that were given commissions as soon as they graduated from college.
Wow.
His name was Alec Agassi.
Are you still with us, Sandy? Senor?
Sandy, are you there? We just lost him for some reason.
I don't know what that was about because I'm still
it shows
showing
he's
him.
Still...
Yeah, it shows that he's still with us.
Well, let's give him just a second here. He was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I
maybe
can't-
having.
I'm- Yeah.
It shows he's. Yeah, it shows she's still connected.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong on our end for the connection. So
Right.
maybe he'll be with us in just a moment.
Right.
Very interesting.
What an amazing story.
And, it is
go
always
ahead.
fascinating to me. You guys out there listening, I don't know if you guys feel like we do when we hear these gentlemen talk, where we're just sitting back and we're really envisioning what they're saying.
Yes.
And just absorbing their stories. And that's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here is give the opportunity for their stories to be told, to get them on record, and have people that are interested in those stories, that want to know the facts, because let's face it, the history books are full of tales, but they're not full of eyewitnesses' accounts.
Right. I agree. And I'm wondering if, because it shows he's still on, maybe if we disconnect and maybe he'll call back, because he might be thinking he's talking and maybe something's happening that he's not even aware of. Oh,
well, I just did that. I
okay,
disconnected.
Let's try that, because I think he'll call right back. And the one thing I wanted to say, I wanted to bring something up. Actually, the Squalus, the submarine that he talks about, bringing him to Bougainville, the island of Bougainville, the Squalus is actually the name of the sub that sunk. When it was brought up to the surface and remade again, then it was renamed the USS Sailfish, and actually went on to have a very well-known tour of duty during the Pacific War during World War II. So I'm not sure. He said it was Squalus when he was on it, but it would have been the Sailfish, because the Squalfish, the Squalus is the one that sunk. Yes, it sunk. Let's see. After completing 18 dives, she went down again off the Isle of Shoals on the morning of 23 May 1939. And then 26 men drowned immediately, but they were able to bring her back up. And they retrofitted it again, fixed it and salvaged it basically, and then it became the Sailfish. So when he was on it, actually going into Bougainville, it was actually the USS Sailfish, according to Navy records. So there, just wanted to give that information real quick. And we'll try to bring him right back, folks. So give us just a couple minutes here.
Absolutely, because what fascinating stories these people have. I sit here and I'm listening to him talk about the hardships of the 9 weeks of training that he received.
Oh, can you imagine?
And I'm sitting there thinking of all the horror stories that I have heard from my Marine friends, and just sitting there, about what that training is like and how difficult it is, etc. And I just cannot get that out of my mind. And then he talks about coming, into this environment on this island, and I you're just sitting here doing the replay and allowing your imagination to follow the story. And guess who is back with us? We do not know what occurred, Mr. Berkman, but we are so glad you returned. Is he with us? Senor? I don't know what's going on right now. Senor, are you with us? I have no idea. I think the senor got off to go make a phone call. And Mr. Berkman, are you with us? Well, until we figure out okay, who have we got dialing? Oh, Lord, we lost Mr. Berkman again.
Okay, he's trying to call back in again, so give him a second here.
Well, I had him on. He had called back, and I had him on, and then we heard him dialing, but we're not hearing him say anything.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm wondering if his phone got muted by some manner. Mr. Berkman, are you back with us?
I am.
Yes,
Okay.
There you are. Wonderful.
Hey, Oh, again. All right, am I on?
Yes, sir. You are live, loud and clear. It was working great. We don't know, some little technical glitch maybe with the phones, but you were talking about. Okay, where exactly was he at? He was talking about a gentleman by the name of V. Do you remember?
I do not recall the gentleman's name, but it was once he had gone back stateside.
Yes.
To
Yeah, when I went back stateside, we were sent to Quantico to get commission.
There you
right.
Everything was assigned in alphabetical order. I was assigned to this bunk that we slept in while we were attending school. And the man in the lower bunk was a man by the name of Alex Agassi. This man was about 5'8" tall and about 5'8" wide. I never saw a man built like him in my life. He was like a brick wall. Come to find out, he was a football player, not just an ordinary football player, an All-American in 2 colleges. I don't know if it's ever been done since, but it was never done before. He was All-American at Northwestern and Purdue.
Wow.
He later became the coach of the Northwestern football team. And I read about it in the paper for many years, and then I didn't. I understand he passed away. But he was the nicest guy in the world. We were playing around one day, and accidentally he hit me. I thought he drove me across the room. And I tell you, he was like a brick wall. I'm not exaggerating. Anyway, it was my bunkmate for all the time we were there. I'm glad I'm back because I have a story to tell you about.
All right, we are.
I am so glad to hear it.
Go back. Go ahead.
Everything has a story. The commandant of the school was a Marine by the name of Colonel B.T. Fay. He later became a general.
Okay.
The school was counted for your marks, 1/3 academic, 2/3 field. Well, I don't have to tell you that at the end of the 1/3, most of us were on the bottom of the list. Why? We were competing with guys like Alec, fresh out of college, on a V12 program. They had a V5 and a V12. That when you got out of college and you were committed to the service, you were assigned the branch that you wanted. Well, Alec wanted the Marines, and he got it. But that's how they got together. Now these kids were smart, ultra smart, and we couldn't compete with them in the books because we'd all been out of school. We were all overseas veterans that were sent back to get commissioned. So the Colonel BTK called us in. Unknowingly, until I got into the office and I talked to someone, did I find out that B.T. Fay was from Albany, New York. They're my hometown.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. So the 8 guys made me the spokesman because I always had a big mouth. So they could, I'd get along better with them.
Uh-huh.
So I went in there, and he didn't read the riot act to me, but he was disappointed that we were so far down on the list. So I said to him, "Colonel, begging your pardon, may I speak my piece?" He says, "Absolutely." And I explained to them how we would naturally not be able to do as much with the books as these kids did. So I said to him, "Colonel, why don't we wait until the field work on the second part of the program is completed, which counts for 2/3 of the mark?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, "That's not a bad idea." He said, "I'll go for that." I says, "Good." So at the end of the 6 months, that we went to school to become lieutenants. Lo and behold, the 8 of us were all on top of the list. These kids didn't know the right hand from their left when they were out in the field.
Right.
They all carried books. And I said to one of them one day, which he didn't really appreciate, one of the teachers, I said, we don't go into battle with books in our hands.
Oh, yeah.
It's just to say, who's this wise guy? But then he got to thinking about it, and he says, well, maybe he's right. I says, most of the time these books are wrong. You don't fight a war with a book in your hand and say, now, today I'm going to do this, and tomorrow I'm going to do that.
Amen.
Wrong. You don't do it that way. You do what you have to do. If something comes up that negotiates your foreign policy, you have to change your system, you do it. So we did. And we did it. We did the field work our way. And like I said before, consequently, we all wound up on the top.
Wow.
So when we graduated in June of 44, they got commissioned. Colonel Fay had an inspection with the whole class. And he came down the line, and he came to me, and he stopped. And he looked me in the eye, and he said, you were right. I said, thank you, Colonel. I thought I would be. And he smiled. He said, lots of good luck, and he kept on moving. Well, that's the story I have about getting commissioned to a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, we went to Hawaii. I was assigned to Hawaii to the 5th Division. They made me a commander of a platoon, of a machine gun platoon. I knew absolutely zero about machine guns, hadn't been schooled in radio communications work.
Mm-hmm.
But I later found out that in the Marine Corps, one dignity you were into previously did not account for anything, that they put you where they thought you were needed. Fine. So they assigned me to this machine gun platoon. Fortunately, I had a gunnery sergeant that knew machine guns backwards. He gave me a crash course in machine guns, and at the end of 2 weeks, I don't think that I knew as much as he did, but I knew machine guns pretty well. I had 5 air-cooled machine guns, and 5 water-cooled. That made up my outfit.
Wow.
I had 53 men, the gunnery sergeant, and myself. We trained very well together. Most of my kids, and I say kids, not using the term lightly, were from New York City, Philadelphia, all the tough neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
But kids that had no fear, and they were good kids. And they later turned out to be excellent Marines. I was made court-martial, deck court-martial. That's the lowest form of court-martial in the Marine Corps. And one of the kids insisted on writing his letters home and telling people where he was and what he was doing. You couldn't do that. We censored all the mail.
Right.
I called him in 2 or 3 times, and I said to him, you can't do that. You continue to do that, you're going to get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't stop. So he came up before me in the deck court martial. The most I could give anybody was 10 days, what we call piss and punk. That's bread and water.
Oh.
And it's what I gave him. And I said, you're going to have to learn the hard way to get along in the Marine Corps. These men that are generals and colonels, they're the bosses. They make the rules, we follow them.
Right.
And the sooner you understand that, the better off you're going to be. Well, I later found out that he made a remark. I don't know whether he meant it or not, but he said to somebody, I'm going to shoot the lieutenant. Well, it got back to me.
Oh, my.
Wow.
So I called him in again. And I said, son, you know, you called everyone son because they were kids. They were like your son.
Right.
Said, let me tell
Right.
you, as you make damn sure that you get me on the first shot because you'll never get off the second one.
Ain't that the truth?
I mean, he says, maybe you're right, Lieutenant. I said, no, not maybe.
Maybe.
No, I'm right. Now you're going to behave yourself. He says, yes, sir. And he did. He turned out to be one of the best Marines in my outfit.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Consequently, we trained there. And January the 1st, 1945, we boarded ship, and we were not told where we were going, but we were going to put together a rather large flotilla of ships for this engagement.
Okay.
When I say rather large, I underestimated pretty good, because it wound up that when we finally got everybody together before we invaded the world, there were 800 ships in the convoy.
Oh,
Wow.
my.
Alan, all you could see were ships. It was like the water was dotted with ships. That's all there was ships. Battle
Wow.
wagons, carriers, destroyers, escorts, you name it. They were there, plus the big transport ships that were carrying all of us.
Oh, man.
There were 3 divisions, 45,000 Marines
Okay.
on these 3 ships. All these
Yeah.
ships. We finally got everybody together, and we were told where we were going. We had all the officers were given instructions. They were pre-cut into booklets, and they were passed out to us, knowing that we were going there, and naturally they waited to the last minute to give it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned all about the island. A white man had never stepped foot on that island. It was
Wow.
controlled and owned by the Japanese for I don't know how many years. 3 days prior to this island, which was a piece of real estate that I couldn't understand why anybody wanted.
Yeah.
It was a little more than a half a mile wide and a couple miles long. I said, what's so important about this island?
Yeah.
Come to find out, they had 2 airfields. These
Mm-hmm.
airfields were important to our Air Force because we had no way of going from Saipan to Tokyo and back nonstop. It was impossible. We had to have a midway point, and that was it. Iwo was 750 miles from Tokyo. And we were told we are going to take this island no matter what. It was that important, never knowing what the outcome would be.
Mm-hmm.
So we landed where we started landing, 5th Division, which was the assault division. We landed on February the 19th. We started in the morning. I was one of the assault troops that hit the island on a landing, what we call LCIs, landing craft infantry.
Okay.
Many of these landing craft never made it to the island, unfortunately. But I'm getting a little ahead. 3 days prior to our landing, 18,000 rounds of ammunition were poured into that island from our battle
Jeez.
wagons, destroyers. Nothing was done. Nothing was calibrated. It was just point blank firing into the island.
Right.
Come to find out, they were sitting there 18 inches below surface laughing at us, which made sense.
Yeah.
They were dug in. They had all those years to fortify, and we were newcomers, white men that had never been on that island. Well, don't have to tell you that the beach was chaos.
I can imagine.
Literally chaos. They couldn't push the dead people aside fast enough. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
We finally secured the bulk of the casualties on the the dead casualties was on the opening days, a couple of days of the landing, because we were trapped on the island. We had nowhere to go except back in the water.
Yeah.
I got my platoon together, and we got word from the Japanese that they were going to push us back into the water again.
Oh.
I got my buddies together, and I said, I said, we're Americans. Nobody tells us stuff like that.
Amen.
Look, hell no, we're not going to let them do it. Good.
Right.
So we got off the beach. Half of my regiment went to Suribachi, which is the mountain on the island. And for strategy purposes, we had to take that because they were looking down on us. We couldn't see them; they could see us, and that's why the casualties were so bad. But we got off the island, and we tried to dig foxholes, and you just couldn't because the whole island was volcanic ash. And as quickly as you dug, it came back in again. So we were like the carnival sitting ducks, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we said we were going to go, and we did. Suribachi was captured by the Americans on the 4th day, the 23rd. I saw the flag go up. Now, I'm not sure to this day whether it was the first flag or the second flag. The first flag was a makeshift flag that the Marines carried with them. They stuck it in some rocks and put it up. The general came by, and he says, I want that flag. Well, you don't argue with the general.
Right.
So he gave, let's face it, generals you don't argue with.
Right.
So, especially this general, he was tough, but he was good.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow, Norm Rosenthal, Bob or whatever his first name was, that's where the famous picture was taken on the second raising of the flag.
Mm-hmm.
Where the 4 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman raised the second flag, and it became the icon of the Marine Corps, so to speak, because to this day, it's probably the greatest picture that was ever taken.
Yes, sir.
There was a big memorial in Washington, D.C., which I had visited twice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Beautiful. And it'll never come down. It's there, and that's where it's going to be.
Right.
But anyhow, the other half of my regiment went to the airfields, of which I was a member of.
Okay.
I lasted 4.5 days. After the flag went up, the Japanese must have got a little mad at us because they pulled a major offensive.
Okay.
That was a big mistake because the Japs had notions of fighting a war their way, what they called kamikaze attacks, where they formed a big line and they could hear the swords dragging on the ground because none of the Japs were really tall men. And they launched this kamikaze attack. Well, I don't have to tell you, it was not a pretty sight.
Okay.
It turned the whole engagement around for us because we dealt them a severe blow, and we continued forward. On the 4th day, in the afternoon, like I said, they got a little mad at us and they let loose with everything. I got hit with a mortar shell.
Mm.
And we carried morphine with us. The officers were the only ones that were allowed to carry that stuff with us.
Mr.
Oh,
Berkman,
that's
Mr. Berkman, how severely were you injured? I mean, are you okay today?
Well, I think that the reason I walk with a walker, and sometimes my wife gets me around with a transporter, stems from that day.
Okay.
I had 8 shrapnel in my back.
Oh.
Wow.
The corpsmen were immediately told where I was, and they came with a stretcher, and they moved me back down to the beach. I went aboard one of these LCIs again, which were now relatively safe, and we went out to the hospital ship. I was on the operating table about, 3-4 hours, I guess, and they took a lot of the shrapnel out of my back.
Okay.
They couldn't get it all, and they told me that subsequently I would have to have more operations to remove what was left of my back, which I accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, we have a story. Game 2, the doctor came in and he says, "How you feeling?" And I was a little groggy at the time. I said, "Pretty good, thanks."
Yeah.
He said, "I want to tell you something. You had a death hold on your money belt, and we had some time getting your fingers off that money belt." I looked at him and I said, "Doctor, I'm a great poker player. I have $1,100 in that money belt. No one, and I mean no one, was going to get their hands on it."
That's great.
So he said, "Don't you worry. We finally got it. It's in the safe. And it's on. And when they take you off this island, we know where you're going. We'll make sure that you get it." Well, the money finally caught up with me in a way. But that everything has a story, good or bad.
Right.
Right.
So anyway, I'm aboard this ship, and they transferred me to Saipan, and they have a big hospital there. And this was an important island to us that we took back, not only for the engagement in Haniwa with the airfields, but the hospital was big. And I laid in that hospital for a while. I don't know how long. It doesn't really make any difference. And I was transferred to a hospital in Honolulu. So I went to Hawaii, and I was in the hospital there for a while.
Okay.
And of course, as you know, Hawaii was a nice place to be in,
Sure.
regardless of whether you were sick, hurt, or whatever. But I was there for a while. From there, I was transferred, believe it or not, to another hospital in San Francisco. I was back in the good old USA.
Yeah.
I stayed in the hospital in Frisco. There, they tried to get you to another hospital as close to your home as they could find. So they found the hospital was a naval hospital in St. Albans, New York. That's on Long Island.
Okay.
And that's where eventually I wound up. All told, I was in the hospital 5 months at all the hospitals. I
Wow.
was operated on twice more, and I was stationed in this hospital. I got out in June 1945.
Okay.
From there, I was transferred to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I was made commandant of the Marine Corps detachment, which amounted to about 300 men.
Okay.
As you know, all the Navy Yards had Marine detachments.
Right.
Right.
Actually, we were part of the Navy, and wherever there was a detachment, we were there. We were the ones that were there, whether it was aboard ship or on one of the islands or on the main base in the United States. So my duties there were very light. We were there mostly just to make sure that everything went all right, security and everything at the yard.
Mm-hmm.
We were called out a couple of times to maintain order. I'm sure you don't remember, but back in 1946, a light one-pilot plane flew into the Empire State Building.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that. Yep.
Luckily, it was on the weekend, and there was nobody there. And when you were on the ground, you looked up and you saw this plane teetering back and forth where it flew through a window. It was not an act of terrorism or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
This judge, he got killed going into the building.
Right.
So we were called out to put a cordon around the building and keep people at a safe distance because bricks and things were flying down from the building.
Okay. Yeah.
My mind is correct. I think he hit the building on the 42nd floor. I think that was it, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Now, that must have been a bizarre sight to look up and see that plane hanging off the building.
In my life, I can't describe to you what that looked like. To see an airplane dangling out of a window, bouncing up and down from the wind.
No, I can't imagine just how bizarre. I mean, I can't imagine how bizarre that must look.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait a minute, you don't belong there.
And of course, it was only a matter of minutes that I mean, not hundreds, but thousands of people came running over. They wanted to see what was going on.
Yeah, I can
and
imagine.
So we maintained order, and everybody was very cooperative. And people stayed away because we put a barricade around the building. We were also called out for parades, and we marched in the St. Patrick's Day parade, where they paint the stripe in the middle of the roll of green for the day.
Uh-huh.
And that was quite an event. My boys looked real sharp, and we didn't have dress blues, but we had a decent set of greens that we wore in the parades.
Mr. Berkman, I have a question for you. You know, here on the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot show, we have on many occasions had veterans come and tell their stories from both World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And one of the things that, you know, they have all relayed to us pretty much is that those that were injured during battle went through a kind of a torn, emotionally torn allegiance thing of wanting to go home, but also not wanting to leave their brothers in arms to fight alone.
That's right.
Did you have that?
And that was the feeling, including myself. When I was in Saipan, and I faced another operation, and they had to take some more shrapnel, I said to the commanding officer, "Am I going back?" And he said, "Hell no."
Yeah.
What, are you crazy? He says, "This is the second time you've been overseas." He says, "You're going back to the States and you're going to stay there." I said, "You sure I can't come?" No, he says, "Under no circumstance can you come back." And that's how we felt. It wasn't a matter of gung-ho or anything like that. It was just, that's the way we felt.
You know, that has been a sentiment that has been repeated, repeated by others. Like I said, not just in our World War II guests, but also with our Korean guests and our Vietnam guests. Many of them have stated that same. It was a very conflicting time for them being injured.
Yes. Of course, Vietnam was a war like no other war. I can't say that I was entirely enamored with the idea of our boys fighting over there and getting killed or wounded. It turned out to be a useless war. And when it ended on our end, we were no further ahead than we were on day one.
Right.
It was just a matter of circumstance. And by the way, the Battle of Iwo Jima, we were told before we landed, it would take approximately 72 hours to take the island. 26 days later,
Yeah.
we secured the island. That's how bad it was over
Isn't that something?
Well,
And you said, and you. Oh, go ahead.
there. It was the largest casualty list of any engagement the Marines ever fought in. But we were told under no circumstances other than taking an island. That was our ultimate goal, and that's what we were going to do.
I have another question for you, Mr. Berkman. A very, very dear friend of mine who passed away this past May. His name was Howard Terry. He also was a Marine there at the Battle of... he was at the Battle of Okinawa.
That pretty well.
And were you... because I know he was in attendance at the Japanese surrender ceremony. And I know that because he gave me his ceremony certificate. But were you involved in any of those ceremonies that occurred after the surrender or when the war was over? I mean, we see these guys who came back from Vietnam who were treated so poorly, so absolute poorly. The guys that came back from Korea, I think the country was just maybe tired of war at that point. The guys that came back from World War I typically were treated well. What was that experience like for you?
World War One.
I mean, World War II. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We were treated. Every one of us was treated like a hero back in this country. In the city of Chicago, when you wanted to go somewhere, the taxi cab drivers wouldn't take money. In New York City, which is supposedly the coldest city in the country, the taxi cab drivers, they would not take any money. Wherever we went, can we buy you dinner? Will you have a drink? No, thank you. Please, let us do something.
All right.
You already do something. You're praying for the rest of the guys that are still over there. Vietnam was not a great place. Unfortunately, the citizens of this country were unfair in treating the returning veterans like they did.
Amen.
They were no different than us. The Marines,
Absolutely.
I didn't know anybody that was over there, but I understand that. When they actually spit on a person in uniform, to me, that's a sign of terrorism. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
Well, I would agree with you. Mr. Berkman, let me ask you this. As you look at what all you sacrificed and what you saw your brothers go through and the current state of this nation, what goes through your mind?
Well, we all hope and pray that someday there'll be peace in this world. Right now, that's not possible. I don't believe that we have to send a lot of men back to Iraq or Afghanistan. They've got to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. To me, Afghanistan is a quagmire. The Russians tried it for 10 years, and they couldn't do anything. We've been there all those years, and literally, we're not a lot further ahead than we were 10 years ago. But we'll stay there, and we're going to send over what we call advisors, teachers, I don't care what you call them.
Right.
They're still men in uniform, and they're in harm's way, regardless of whether they're as teachers or as combat. But hopefully something will happen where there's going to be an end to all this nonsense. You know, my way of thinking is this. The Middle East will probably never, and I say never, be a peaceful part of this world. The Arabs are a warring people.
That's right.
They were a warring people 2,000 years ago. They lived on the desert.
Amen.
They don't know anything except war. The illiteracy rate amongst Arabs is phenomenal. They do what they're told, and most of the time it's not right. The countries are run by dictators, and we're trying to make democratic countries out of them. Well,
yes.
Maybe we will in some instances. But I'm afraid to say that I don't think we'll ever see the Middle East at peace with one another.
Agreed.
You know,
We don't believe so either.
I always say that if the Arabs got together as one unit, they could wipe Israel off the map.
Oh, yes, sir.
They won't. They won't do it because they can't get together. They don't trust one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's saving Israel. And I'm sure Netanyahu knows that. I had the privilege of being in Israel 3 times. I went over with a political group and spent a considerable time with the members of the Knesset. And I voiced my opinion. I told them exactly what I'm saying to you. And they looked at each other very dubiously and said, well, maybe you're right. I'm all right.
Right.
I said, you're not going to change 2,000 years of Arabs in one day or 1 month or 1 year or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
They like to fight.
That's true.
The only thing they know.
They do. They are a warring people. They are a warring people. When they are not warring with an outsider, they are warring amongst themselves.
That's right. They don't trust one another.
Right.
They never have and they never will.
Yeah, we're not going to change it. No.
They do not trust one another. The Syrians don't trust the Iranians. The Iranians don't trust the Saudis. Nobody trusts each other.
Right.
They all have these oil fields that they make millions and millions of dollars on, and now they got the new thing, which is ISIS, that they're trying to fight and wipe out. It's going to be, it seems like it's a never-ending fight. And I hopefully hope that someday we'll be able to say, I won't be around, but people will be able to say, I can travel over there to the countries and feel safe while walking around.
Mm-hmm. Sandy, I got a question. Oh, go ahead.
I'm listening.
Okay. I've got a question for you, and we don't have much time left. I cannot believe where the time has gone. Your story is an amazing one, but give us just a brief synopsis of what Sandy did post-Marine Corps up until this time. You said you just turned 95 years old. Happy birthday in October. What was your life like in that time? Maybe in 5 minutes or so.
Well, I thank God every day that I'm still around.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen the things that I have since 1920 or at least 1930 when I was growing up. Airplanes, radios, televisions, everything that I have seen in 95 years. I just can't believe what has gone on in the past century.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful to be around. And I'm sitting right across from my wife here, who's making out Christmas cards.
Oh.
That's what I like. I like good things. I'm a Libran. I believe that the glass is half empty, not half full. Or half full, not half
Half full, right, okay, yeah. So
Right.
optimist. Mm-hmm.
Optimist.
Yeah.
I have one thing I want to say before we close.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
And people say to me, when you were overseas, especially on Iwo Jima, what did it feel like when you know that you were causing all these enemy deaths with your machine gun platoon? I said, let me tell you something. I said, if you think I was proud, I'm not. I wasn't then, I'm not now. Nobody likes to kill other people. But it was a case of them or us.
Yes.
Amen.
That
Amen.
doesn't mean we were the winners. But that doesn't mean that I have to like it.
Agreed.
And I hope to God, and I pray to God, as I said a little while ago, that someday we'll be able to travel to these foreign places and say, well, here I am. Can I look around? And that guy looks at me and he says, by all means. And that will be a big, big step in the right direction.
Yeah. Amen. Well said. Well said, sir. Anything else you want to share with our audience? You've been with us for a long time tonight. We really appreciate it. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. My wife just informed me that we have an anniversary coming up. 5 years. Why 5 years? We've been together 35.
Aww.
I decided to make an honest woman of her.
She's an amazing lady. I love talking to you guys when I call. That's good.
That is fantastic. Congratulations and happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I think I can say this on television. When we decided to get married, her youngest son lives in back of us, came to me and said, Sandy, you don't have my mother friggin', do you? I said, no, not really. So we've had a happy 5 years together. Sure, we have disputes and arguments, just like anybody else does.
Oh, sure.
So when we go to bed at night, the last thing we say to each other is, I love you. And that, to me, is very important.
Yes,
That
sir.
is very important. Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard that was the biggest key to a successful relationship was no matter how angry or what have you, who you were, that you made sure to acknowledge that you loved each other before you went to sleep at night.
You go to sleep, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I want to thank you for allowing me to do this interview, so to say. It's been fun. I didn't have any notes. I just took it off the top of my head as we went along. I'm sure that I probably missed a couple of things. But you know, at my age, I guess we're exempt and we're allowed to.
Shoot, at your age, you're sharp as a tack. I got
You're
news
doing
for
very
you.
well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Goodness.
You know, people say to me, how do you feel? Well, from the neck on down, there isn't much to brag about.
Right.
I walk with a walker, I use a wheelchair, and it's not very pleasant. But from the neck on up, don't mess with me.
There you go. I can tell just the last hour. It's been well over an hour we've been talking together. Yes, sir. There's no doubt about it.
That is absolutely fantastic. Well, Mr. Berkman, thank you so much. I did have the opportunity to have a correspondence with your son, and please let him know to contact me tomorrow, and I will make sure that he also gets a digital copy of the show.
Yeah.
I understand that the Senor is going to be sending you a copy of the show. We thank you very much for coming and joining us again, and as always, it is our pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's been indeed a pleasure for me. I've enjoyed it, and
Good.
I hope that some people listen, and then maybe they have a different perspective on why we have to fight all these wars. There's
Well,
always a reason.
Well, you've got a few, I'll just say tens of tens plus of tens, thousands of people are listening to your story tonight.
Right.
Thank you very, very much. Alan, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome. The pleasure's all mine, and I guarantee you we will continue to remain in touch. I promise that.
Stay in touch. I'd like to hear from you. And who knows, maybe someday we'll get to meet one another.
I
Wouldn't
would
that be
love to do that.
fantastic? Absolutely.
I certainly would.
Absolutely.
Strange things happen, and this could be one of them.
Yes, sir, it could be.
But
Well,
I leave
Mr.
you with, please
Well,
stay
you-
well.
Okay.
You have
Well-
a very blessed evening, sir. Thank you so much.
You're quite
Thank you as well.
Oh,
Thanks, Dolly. You take care. Well, we'll be in touch, and bless you, Mr. Berkman, for everything, your service to your country. And there's just not words that are appropriate right now, so we'll just say thank you.
You're
Okay.
quite welcome. And
Have a good night.
I just want you to know
Uh-huh.
that my wife is the greatest nurse on earth.
Ah, well, you're lucky there too.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be around. She
Wow,
balls
that's
me out. And I know there's a reason for it. She wants me to do things on my own. Well, some things I can do and some I can't. But
yeah.
we have a great relationship regardless of whether we have a fight now and then. I love her. I love her very much.
Very good.
that's fantastic.
Oh, you take care, and we'll talk to each other real soon.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas to you and your wife.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry
and Happy
Christmas.
New Year.
All right, take care.
Young lady,
Ooh,
He's
I'm sorry. I
Did
don't
he-
know. I don't know if he did that or we did.
Oh,
I don't know.
well, folks, that was Second Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, Sandy Berkman. He led a platoon of 53 men into one of the bloodiest battles of World War II, known as Iwo Jima, and all of the Marines under his command were wounded or killed, including himself, obviously wounded, not killed, while fighting on that little Pacific island known as Iwo Jima. And he was grievously wounded on February 23, 1945, when the flag went up. Both flags. There was the first one, and then they recreated it again, the most famous one that we're all aware of and are certainly aware of, and he was wounded. He's not sure if he saw the first one or the second one, but around that time he took serious shrapnel to his back, and like I said, 53 of men in his platoon, all dead or wounded. Wow, what an amazing story. Talk about living history.
Absolutely, guys. I wanna mention something to you before we leave out for the night. For those of you who are unaware, 2 Afghan pilot trainees assigned to Moody Air Force Base here in my great state of Georgia, in Valdosta, failed to report duty on Monday for maintenance training. We've discussed that lightly on the show. They were with the 81st Fighter Squadron. Last contact the base had with the men was on last Friday. The 2 men had been at Moody's Air Force Base since February 2015. They, as of yesterday at 4 p.m., it had been determined that they had rented a car at Hertz Rental Car in Valdosta, Georgia, and the same rental car was returned in Washington, D.C. Now, they are speculating that the 2 men, Mirwaz Kohistani and Shirzad Rahula, got on a subway for New York City. However, that cannot be confirmed. But they do know that they made it as far as into Washington, D.C.
Well, maybe they just wanted to go on a sightseeing trip. That's all. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, keep bringing them here. Keep bringing them here.
boy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is why is there any reason for them to be here? There's not fighter jets in the Mideast to send them to a base there.
Yeah.
Why send them here? I mean, it's not like they don't do maintenance on them while they're over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. So I guess we'll see. That's a developing story, apparently, and we'll see where that leads.
Well, the police are asking that if anyone sees either one of them, of course they've posted their pictures, etc., to please notify them. They are considered both missing persons and wanted fugitives.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you take from it.
Interesting.
You take from that whatever you want to.
Right.
So, but they're asking for you to dial 911 immediately if you know the whereabouts, have information on, or encounter them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
But yeah, just young jihadis. Jihadis, what is it? Jihadis Gone Wild in Washington, D.C.
I was trying to think of it too. Yeah, Jihadis Gone Wild in Washington, D.C. There you go.
I mean, Jihadis Gone Wild in the Potomac.
Isn't that something?
Wow. We have such issues in this country, and then these morons. Oh, let's bring some more in. Let's fund to bring some more in. Let's keep the visa and the refugee asylum and lottery winning program. Let's keep our borders open because they offer no threat to America. And this is why everybody is getting behind Donald Trump. Earlier in the show we were talking about the only one who had not said anything negative regarding Donald Trump. They've kind of separated them, and I think this is where his appeal has come up, is because they've separated. It's like, this is Donald Trump, and there is everybody else that is the establishment, from Bernie Sanders to Marco Rubio, Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush. All of them are on one side, and Donald Trump is on the other, and anybody that you don't like that is on that other side is going over. I mean, if anybody who's sitting there saying, I don't like any of those people over there, is going for Donald Trump, just because they have created this chasm, this undeniable chasm of difference.
Agree.
Now, do I know whether or not Donald Trump would make a good president? I have no idea if he's going to make a good president.
No.
I know he is a wonderful businessman. I know he makes great business decisions. Even when that business decision is bankruptcy, it is the right business decision at that moment. I don't care what anybody says. He's a good businessman. He knows how to brand something. He takes pride in what he applies himself to. I have no problem with this. He is an ass. And I don't know if the arrogant assness of him will override his capabilities in the White House. So will he make a good president? I don't know. But I can tell you who won't. Marco Rubio won't. El Hebe won't.
Oh, come on now. Give him a break.
And if the GOP wants to gang up and manipulate the rules and change the rules after they signed an agreement with Trump that should be honored, if they won't stand by the rules and Cruz stands with them, then Cruz won't be either.
All right. No, I agree.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I'm a proud dad. Not a big sports fan, but my daughter's team lost their fourth game of the season. However, at the end of the first period, they were 24-9. They were down 24-9. They ended that game up 39-38. So they really did well. Even though they lost, they're learning some valuable lessons, and I'm very proud of her and those girls. So. And that's coming from someone that's not a big sports fan. But
congratulations. Now, I know their names, but I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
But congratulations. Guys, we're running out of time here. I'd like to remind you guys that the Ruthie Report with Ruthie Hendricks follows us tonight on Patriot Network News. You guys make sure to tune that in. Excellent show. She provides all of the information that she has accessible to her regarding our border security and how to keep our nation safe. She brings in some wonderful guests, so you guys make sure to tune her in.
Yes.
We're WTF, the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Show. We're here Monday through Thursday from 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Our phone lines are always open, and if you would like to know